Okay, a new Heimdal study looks at the state of agent fatigue in 2025. I guess it'd be good to start with what was the trigger, the reasons behind carrying out the research and then producing, obviously, the final publication.
Yeah, certainly. So Heimdal support MSPs, they support end users as well, but primarily we support managed service providers. And through our conversations with them, we were hearing the same thing over and over again, that they were essentially stressed, overworked, overwhelmed with the volume of alerts they were getting and the amount of tools they were using, which feeds in really to what Heimdal are all about, unification. So because we were seeing the same problems repeated again and again, we then decided to look into it. Is this actually a problem spread across North America as well? We focused this survey.
And I guess before we continue, maybe for those who don't know or even who do, but how would you define agent fatigue and why is it such a problem, at the current time?
Yeah, certainly. So with agent fatigue, essentially it's managed service providers, managed security service providers being overwhelmed by the amount of tools that they're having to use, the huge amount of alerts that they're receiving. The more clients they've got, the more endpoints they've got, the more alerts they've got, and a lack of integration as well between all these tools. All of that coming together to create the perfect storm, overwhelming them. And some people describe it as essentially a death by 1,000 paper cuts. And that really is how it is with the amount of alerts that MSPs are dealing with.
Okay, and I presume the study uncovers the extent of the agent fatigue problem. And I don't presume I know, because one of the key findings, I think, was the fact that over half the respondents say they've experienced alert fatigue. So did that surprise you at the extent, or was that pretty much confirm what you already knew?
Yeah, I think it was a surprise because obviously we knew it was a problem, but the extent of the problem when it was actually revealed was shocking. So yeah, 56% of the MSPs that we spoke to said they suffer alert fatigue on a daily or monthly basis, which is a huge number, over half of the MSPs we spoke to. But then when we zoomed into the data a little bit more, so we spoke to MSPs of varying sizes, but when we zoomed into the data to look at MSPs with over 1,000 clients, 100% of them said they suffered alert fatigue on a daily basis. Huge numbers, astronomical. So it really showed to us that the more clients you have, you are going to suffer with agent fatigue.
Okay, and alongside that, I think the report identifies there's a small minority have seamless tool connectivity, which is a good thing. But I think it also uncovers that as a general rule, not only the more clients, the more fatigue, but the more tools you have, the more fatigue. Is that correct?
Exactly that, exactly that. So I believe it was 12% of MSPs we spoke to had over 10 tools. And as soon as you start entering that realm, then yeah, you are falling straight into agent fatigue. And what we found is that those MSPs that had 4 or less tools, they were 50% less likely to suffer with agent fatigue. So there's a direct correlation between, like you say, the amount of tools you have and the amount of clients you have leading to agent fatigue.
Okay, and some of the other things highlighted were the problem of false positives. So I guess that just adds to the workload. How big a problem is that in amongst the right things that are being flagged up, all this stuff that can actually be ignored? But
Yeah, certainly, certainly. And 25% of the MSPs you spoke to said they receive false positives. And if you think of it like this, you get a message warning you of a problem, you then invest your time, resources in investigating that problem just to find out it's not actually a problem. And then you turn back to your screen and you've got multiple screens to look at, all telling you there's other problems to look at. That is why MSPs are getting burnt out and overwhelmed. It's demoralizing, it's draining, and it's never ending. So, and with 1/4 of those alerts you're getting being false positives, ultimately being a complete waste of your time and energy, you can see how quite quickly MSPs become overwhelmed by it all.
yeah, and you said there obviously when they sort of come back from reporting out multiple screens, etc. So I guess there are benefits to consolidating the reporting. I mean, is that with the MSPs largely on that road, or plenty of them still they're grappling with sort of multiple screens, multiple reports, and therefore adding to the problem. Not only are there lots of problems being reported, but they've got to go in different directions to find where those all are, as opposed to, I guess, ideally one screen telling them everything in one place.
Yeah, certainly. So from the MSPs we spoke to, it's really interesting to see that the majority, so over half, were aware of the problem. They know the problem exists. Maybe they hadn't termed it agent fatigue, but they knew there was a problem in terms of they got too many screens to look at, too many alerts coming in, and it was on the roadmap to do. We need to sort that one day, but they hadn't got any further than that. There was a small proportion as well that were like, no, we want best of class tool in every field, and we're going to stick with where we are. A very, very small proportion were both unsighted to the problem and weren't doing anything about it. And we found that 20% of those MSPs that we had spoken to, who we coined as the pioneers, they were aware of the problem and had resolved the problem. So they'd moved themselves into the position of having 4 or less tools, and they'd eradicated agent fatigue from their businesses. And those pioneers, they were reaping the rewards. They were seeing the benefits from that as well.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to say, how can MSPs clearly consolidating tools is one of the major things, but what other things can MSPs do to address the problem of agent fatigue?
Yeah, certainly. And that's a really, really valid question. So one of the big things is leadership buy-in. So what we found was that the MSPs that had the leadership buy-in, the support, and actually made it a strategic decision rather than a tactical decision, those were the MSPs that were succeeding, because the leadership, the owners, founders, C-suite, whoever it may be, they decided, if we make this a strategic decision and part of our business, then they understood the value or the benefits that they would see as a business. So then, rather than trying to make it an overnight switch, they then introduced a phased approach where they gradually made these changes, tested them. They had metrics in place to monitor, to see the improvements that were being made. Things like reducing the noise that the agent of the security team was receiving, but also looking at the individuals, the humans behind all of this, seeing that they improved, or their happiness levels improved. They were happier. They were more likely to come to work and enjoy their work rather than becoming overwhelmed. And another key element was working with vendors that supported this transition. So it really is a strategic move rather than a tactical move of simply changing 1 or 2 tools. It's about a business mindset and moving towards that pioneer approach.
And how easy is it to consolidate tools? Because I imagine, if you're talking to vendors and saying, well, we're either leaving you or how can you help us, they're potentially going to say, oh, you don't want to do that because you might miss this and that. So is there an element of fear that if you reduce from sort of a dozen or 15 tools down to 4, you potentially are going to be missing some alerts, that meaningful alerts, or how can you manage that and be confident that the consolidation process doesn't leave you with some gaps?
Exactly that. And I think that's one of the big things, is it change, whatever it is always something that people are worried about and fearful of. So it's about recognizing that there is going to be change and understanding what are the key metrics or the KPIs that we need to make sure we maintain during this change. And as I mentioned just there, about doing it in a phased approach. Switching everything off and changing overnight to one platform is very much possible, but it's going to be a significant upheaval, and there's going to be significant results, impacts as following on from that. So doing it in a phased approach, one at a time, moving across slowly and in a structured manner is the best way to do it. And it's also about working with the team that are involved in it. It's selecting tools that they're happy with, they want to use, and that work for them. So it's very much a team effort. But ultimately, by doing this, you're going to see faster response times, simplifying your operations, and happier teams, and potentially as well freeing up time for the security team to actually put their energy into other areas. And it may be simply speaking to clients to tell them the good work that you're doing, rather than them being stuck at a screen going through all these different alerts. So it'll improve the quality of the service that MSPs offer too.
And just one other thing there, in terms of automation and our good friend AI, which everyone's getting very excited about for understandable reasons, um, is part of the consolidation also more automation, so you can have some sort of rules-based policies whereby certain alerts can almost get dealt with automatically rather than an individual having to address it. I mean, where are we at now, I suppose, in that
Yeah.
potential transition?
Yeah, definitely. It's a really, really interesting point. So this stat really did shock me. So lots of the conversations I have with MSPs, the events or conferences that I'm at, there's lots of talk around automation and simplifying the process so we can free up that human time, like I've just mentioned. And one of the questions that we ask our MSPs is where are they at with automation? And only 31% of the MSPs we spoke to had actually implemented any form of automation, which to me was stunning because there's some real easy wins there, like you've just mentioned there, being able to triage some of these alerts before they even touch a human to potentially remove them or simplify the end result so we know where we're going with it straight away. So yeah, only 31% of MSPs are actually using automation at the moment, which is a really small number considering, like you say, AI and automation are very much here at a hot topic at the moment.
Okay, and I guess then it would be good to understand what Heimdal's role is in helping MSPs with this agent fatigue. Where do you fit within in the landscape?
Yeah, certainly. So Heimdall got the broadest tech stack in Europe, and we offer a significant number of tools. So that unification piece is really our call to MSPs, and that's why lots of MSPs come to us for the simplification and the prevention that we offer. So whether you're looking at next generation antivirus with things like remote access protection, whether you're looking at email security, ransomware encryption protection, one of the big ones, patch and asset management, we offer a significant number of tools, all on that one platform with our threat and action center sitting over the top of these tools to digest all of this information. And if you think of it like this, and my background is in policing and in the investigations that I did, it's always about layering that data. Very rarely is it like you see on the telly where you get that clue, that golden nugget that solves everything. It's all about layering that information. And that's exactly what Heimdall do. So we'll take a bit of information from the email security platform. We'll take another bit of information from our NGov platform. All that information is layered together to give you a richer piece of information in the end. So you may have multiple flags combined together to raise the risk score up to say to you, look, this is the threat that you need to be looking at right now because of X, Y, and Z. So layering the information in that one platform. And that's what you miss out with other platforms where the integration isn't there. So you're having to go to multiple platforms, receive all that information, and then piece it together yourself. The Heimdall platform does that piecing together, that layering for you to keep it simple and focus the skills and the resources you've got into the right place at the right time.
And to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the moving towards a consolidation and consolidated unified approach,
Yeah.
how do you help folks manage that transition? Because I know migrations of any sort make people
Yeah.
quite nervous. So and how can people sort of engage with yourself, and make sure that the transition is as painless as possible, if you like?
Yeah, certainly. Well, that's the beauty of Heimdall in terms of, like I mentioned, the lots of different products that we have, and you can take them one by one, two, three at a time, whatever fits you and your requirement. And our account executives will work with you to help you do that. So we can guide you. So we work with a lot of clients. Our account executives will help you guide from the previous experience they've got. Say, right, this is the best platform to start with in your situation. And then we suggest building out from here. So we'll essentially help you build a roadmap, work with you throughout that process. And another thing that I've seen that Heimdall have done or still do, so to say, is when we speak with our partners, we understand their problems, we listen to what they've got to say, and where they're feeding back to us, oh, it'd be really good if we had this slight tweak here. I've been so impressed to see that the Heimdall just get on and do it. And just for context, so I've been at Heimdall now for 4 or 5 months, and the way that Heimdall works in the background is truly impressive. I haven't seen another organization like it, and it's because they genuinely listen to what is happening out on the front line, so to speak, and then look at their tool and how can we improve it. And because this has all been created by Heimdal, we're not white labeling other products, it's all our tool. Those modifications can be done and implemented quickly. So I've been massively impressed by it, and the feedback that I've been hearing from MSPs that use us is exactly that. Heimdal listen, they make those changes that make our business better. And ransomware encryption protection is a really good example of that. So we used to have just the one engine on ransomware encryption protection. So essentially, when an encryption process started, then you'd be essentially that'll be stopped. That'll be the alert that the engine would detect. Now we've added 4 engines. So you've still got the encryption engine, but you've now got a renaming engine. So if files are being renamed, that's another alert factor there. We've got the canary. So if certain files, hidden files, are being renamed or encrypted, again, that's another engine that's picking up ransomware with the encryption process. And the 4th engine that we have is the shadow copy engine. So where cyber criminals come to delete our shadow copy files so we can't restore our Windows systems, again, the ransomware encryption protection module steps in and prevents that, and an additional red flag. So ultimately, with those 4 engines, you've got a much stronger protection and much richer information coming from it, which again would feed into our threat and action center.
Okay, and so the report, as I understand it, along with, I mean, clearly there's plenty of other content collateral, but the report, which is well worth folks going to have a look, is available on the Heimdal website. Yeah, just tell us what else, what sort of other collateral is on there as well.
Certainly, yeah. So the Heimdal website is actually jam-packed, full of information. So yeah, you're able to download the report there and review the report in detail. But we've also got demos, video demos of each and every one of our products, as well as information about those. You've also got the support page, which gives you that detailed information about what our products actually do. I'd also point people towards our YouTube channel, because not only do we have those demos that I mentioned on the YouTube channel, but there's a huge amount of information about not only the products that we have, but how they fit into the market, and then speaking to other MSPs to gain insights from them about how they use Heimdal, but also how they're positioning themselves in terms of cybersecurity for their partners. So not only our website, but our YouTube channel is very valuable too.
Okay, and maybe just in finishing, what would be the 1 or 2 key pieces of advice to give to folks to help them make agent fatigue either a thing of the past, or at least reduce it significantly?
Yeah, certainly. So for me, this came out about the other week. So I was speaking to a group of MSP owners, leaders, senior leadership teams, essentially with MSPs, making them aware of the agent fatigue report. And it actually turned out that the people on the ground, so the security team leaders, they were aware of agent fatigue. They knew it was very real, and ultimately they were suffering from it. But the founders, the people that were slightly removed from the front lines, they weren't as aware of agent fatigue. So the first thing I would say is we need to be communicated internally effectively. Agent fatigue isn't something that we should accept. Agent fatigue is something that's happened over time. Now, just on that point, if we go back to 2007, this is what some people describe as the first cyber war. So this was when Estonia was attacked and essentially caused significant issues for, I believe it was 10 days at the end. Ultimately, they got back on track. Investigation was conducted into that, and it was all due to politics. And there were fingers pointed without any confirmation as to who was involved, but I'm sure we can all guess as to where I'm going with that. However, this happened in 2007. And at that point, the EU realized, NATO realized, we don't actually have any concrete cybersecurity controls, standards across EU nations. So at that point, they then made the decision, right, we need to get information out to all these different countries to say, look, this is where you should be at. This is the standard we should be achieving. And this ultimately gave birth to the compliance era that we've now moved into. So Cyber Essentials, ISO 27001, NIS2 now, DORA, PCI DSS, all of these different compliance measures, which MSPs are trying to keep up with, all came to birth throughout 2007 to the current day. This ultimately is where the problem came from, and it happens so slowly over multiple decades. COVID made that worse because all of a sudden you had people working from offices where it was essentially easier to have them within the walls of your castle. COVID came, everyone moved out of these walls, dotted different places around the world using different devices, lots of BYOD, bring your own device, which meant that security teams had to act. And as you recall, during COVID, it was that state of panic. It was about businesses surviving rather than doing things the best way they could. So we saw lots of investment into new tools, protecting personal devices, BYOD, protecting cloud infrastructure now happened very quickly. And then all of a sudden, this problem started to grow. And going back to my initial point, because this has grown so slowly and yeah, slightly accelerated around the COVID time, but because this has grown since 2007, the need for different tools, different requirements that are imposed upon us, senior leadership may not be, and from what I've seen, aren't actually aware because security teams aren't pushing that information up. It's just become an accepted thing. And when it comes to those individual tools, we've also seen the spike in venture capitalist funding into cybersecurity, which as a result meant that we had lots of little niche tools coming out that with the ultimate aim of, yeah, we're going to get venture capitalist money, but integration of these tools into a larger stack was always on the roadmap. It generally never happened, which meant that MSPs who selected these fantastic tools have these tools in isolation. So over time, they've ended up with this significant stack, which they've become used to having to deal with all these different problems. And it's not only the problems such as agent fatigue with your alerts, the amount of tools you've got. Think of it with the new people onboarding, the new team members for the security team onboarding. They've got to learn multiple tools as well. Different metrics that are measured in different ways that are not comparable. So the problems become wide but accepted, which means that the ultimate way to address this is to acknowledge the problem, push it up to senior leaders so they can understand the problem, so they begin to recognize the problem. And then as a business, go, right, this is actually a business problem rather than simply a security problem. This is a business problem because for those MSPs that have reached 1,000+ clients, and we know on a daily basis they're suffering from agent fatigue, the problem they face is the quality of their service is going to decline. So where they want to carry on increasing the number of clients they've got, they're going to struggle to do that because going back to the point of agent fatigue, they're going to be suffering agent fatigue, which then means that their staff, the security team, they're going to be tired. They're going to be jaded by the number of the tools they've got, the number of alerts they're having to deal with, which means that they're going to miss some of these alerts, which ironically then means that they're less secure. So the service they're offering their clients isn't going to be as good. So when they get up to and above that 1,000+ clients point, all of a sudden, they're going to start dipping again because clients aren't going to be happy with the service. So it is a business decision to look at this strategically and say, right, are our security teams functioning as well as they can be? What can we do to improve that? And the answer that the majority of business will come to, hopefully relatively quickly, is reducing the number of tools they're using to reduce the noise that their security teams are then receiving, which means they're going to have more free time to get stuck into things that can actively help and improve their clients and increase and improve the quality of that service.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great to chat, and thanks so much for sharing so many great insights into the situation, and hopefully we will see an improvement over time. But thanks, Adam, very much for talking to us. Thank you.
Philip, thanks for your time.